Okay, Erev Tov, continuing with Mitzvah 27, the Mitzvah Shelo La'asot Pesel, prohibition, a negative commandment, not to make an idol. Says the Chinuch, Shelo Na'aseh Tzelamim Sheye'avdu. We are commanded that we don't make any statues or idols for the purpose of worship. Va'afilu lo avadam ha'oseh otam, and even if the person who makes them doesn't actually worship them, ha'asiyah levad asura. Just the making of them is asur. Le'archik hamichshol, to distance the stumbling block for idolatry. Ve'en efresh ben sheyaseh biyado, o sheyetzaveh la'asot. Comes the Rambam and he says a chidush. He said there's no difference if a person makes an idol with his own hands or he instructs someone else to make an idol with his own hands. Shneimar, both are prohibited. Shneimar, lo ta'aseh lecha pesel v'chol temuna, shall not make a carved image nor any likeness. V'amtzaveh la'asota, and the one who instructs another person to make it, hu agorem asiyah, he is the one who causes it to be made. We're going to see later on that the chinuch has an issue with this. Now, what we said for right now, Zeu data Rambam. This is the Rambam's explanation and his opinion. That it makes no difference whether a person intends to worship it or not, he is chayav. Vedata Ramban, but the Ramban says differently. She'ena azara bekan ela shelo yaseh tzlamim al dat leovdam. The only injunction here is that a person should not make an idol with intent to worship the idol. Gam katav, he writes further, she'enanu limnot lav zeh min hamikra hazeh, that we cannot count the prohibition against making idols. Ki lo yasir bezeh hakatuv rak b'isur avodat zara shu b'mita. Because the entire second commandment of the Aseret HaDibrot, the Torah warns us only about the prohibition of actually worshipping avodah zarah, which is execution, uba'asiyat selamim, but with regards to making idols, kozman shelo avadam en badavar ela malkut. If a person doesn't intend to worship them, his punishment is lashes. So the Ramban is actually saying that this mitzvah of not to make an idol, of lo ta'aseh lecha pesel, v'chol temuna, is specifically only if he has intent to worship it, and that's why you get a punishment of execution. If you didn't have it, it's a different avera.
What about some people worship the sun, the moon, the stars?
That's avodah zarah. That's flat out avodah zarah.
Pictures of that? We're not interested in.
Well, if you make a statue of the sun and you worship it, or you don't. Okay, so to make it according to Rambam, you would be liable, death, and if it was an idol, right? If it's used as an idol, even though you don't worship it, and if it's not, then according to the Ramban, it's just malkut.
Take pictures of it, make beautiful movies of it, but not because I like the beauty of the moon. I like the beauty of the stars.
It's a whole different issue halachically whether a person's allowed to make an image of certain things that at one time was worshipped without actually making the defect into the image. That's probably some of the halachot that are dealt with regard to this. Well, whatever is worshipped as an idol. Some people they worshipped trees. They worshipped a lot of things as idols, right? So again, it's all the statue is usually of something significant where people used to worship of. Now the Rambam's chidush is that even if you don't worship, even if you have no intent to worship it, but there might be other people that worship it. Okay, you're a manufacturer of idols. Okay, you would be chayav execution. The Ramban says no. Just because you're a manufacturer, you're only liable to lashes, but not execution. So the Ramban says, "Shekol pasuk delo yeh lecha Elohim acherim al panai." That's the second commandment. Nechshav lelav echad is really just one single mitzvah prohibition. Yasir shelo nodeh alud lezulato, which prohibits attributing a godly power to any other entity other than Hashem. Ben shekablenu be'eloha, whether either by accepting it as a god, kilomar shiomar lo eli ata, as if you're looking at this thing and saying you are my god, or yishachavelo, or he bows down to it, or yavdenu be'achad me'arba avodot asurot, or by worshiping with one of the four primary forms of worship, or ba'avodatom yuchedelo, or by doing whatever unique manner of worshiping that idol needs. But as for the prohibition of making idols and keeping them in one's possession without worshiping them, says the Ramban, Nafkalami pasuk al tifnu el ha'elilim. That's another pasuk in Parashat Kedoshim that says, do not turn to the idols, ve'loei masecha lo ta'asu lachem, and you shall not make for yourselves. Ve'tameh ani al Rambam. He goes, I am puzzled by the words of the Rambam. I mentioned this just a few minutes ago. Shekatav she'en efresh ben shi'asem beyado yitzaveh lasotam. Who writes that there's no difference if you yourself make the idol or you command somebody else to make the idol. Okay? Even by commanding someone to make the idol, you're liable. And he says, I don't get that. She'areh mitzaveh meshaleachu. The person who's instructing someone else, he's a meshaleach, he's a dispatcher. V'kaimalan meshaleach patur. And we know that a meshaleach, a dispatcher, is exempt from liability because you can't do shlichut for an averah. That's the rule. I tell you, go speak lashon hara about him. I'm not at fault. You're at fault. You're the one who went and did it. Why am I at fault? The fact that I said it, okay. But so he has an issue with this. Yes. Yeah.
He was, the
Kohen Gadol.
No, I'm talking about Aaron when they built the
Chet HaEgel.
He was the one who told them, to bring all the bulls to build.
He's still
Yeah.
He was still hoping the Moshe Rabbeinu would come down.
Supposed to get lashes, supposed to get what?
No, he's supposed to get nothing. Now there was some sort of tikkun he needed to do, because it's still a gray area, probably something he shouldn't have said. So, but he's not liable for avodah zarah. You can't say that Aaron HaKohen. Exactly. So according that's his issue with the Rambam. His issue with the Rambam, according to the Rambam, it seems that maybe Aaron HaKohen would have been liable by saying, "Go and make yourself asulachem egel masecha," right? And by but I don't know if he actually said that. He just said maybe collect, right? I don't think he actually gave the instruction. I have to review the psukim. I don't think he actually gave instruction. Yeah, he didn't object. It doesn't bring it here in the notes. There is an insight here as one sort of resolution, but I don't know if we're going to get to it. Anyways, Shoresh mitzvah zu yadua, the purpose of this mitzvah is well known. Shelo le'archik avodah zarah. We have to distance ourselves from avodah zarah. Dinah mitzvah, the laws of this mitzvah include kegon ha'oseh tzurot, someone who makes images. Ezo tzura asura lasot vezo muter. Which type of image is allowed, which is not. Hachiluk sheben bolet leshokat. The difference between a protruding image and a sunken image. V'din tabat shesh alea chotam, or a signet ring. V'yete pratea mevorim masechet avodah zarah. You can find masechet avodah zarah. V'nohege b'chol makom kol zman. It applies in all locations at all times. B'zcharim u'nekevot, both men and women. Ve'over alea ve'asat shlamim u'nevadim ve'mezid. If someone who transgresses this and intentionally makes statues that are intended to be worshipped, loket, incurs the punishment of Malkut. Okay, I think we'll stop there and we'll continue Bezrat Hashem next time.